I stopped spending for 30 days. Here's what happened to my bank account. It wasn't some grand experiment at first, it was a moment of pure, unfiltered panic. I was scrolling through my bank statement, the digital numbers glowing ominously on the screen, and the feeling was just sickening. A coffee here, a new gadget there, takeout because I was too tired to cook. It all added up to a figure that made my jaw drop. Where did all that money even go? I worked hard, I was making a decent income, but my savings account looked like it had been on a starvation diet. It was a treadmill of earning and spending, and I was getting absolutely nowhere, just running in place. Before, my inner dialogue was a constant stream of justifications. It sounded something like this. Oh, it's only $5 for this coffee, it makes my morning better so it's worth it. That new tech gadget on Amazon? It's on sale, I'm practically saving money by buying it now. I deserve a nice dinner out after the week I've had, I'll just start saving more next month. This next month mentality was my financial kryptonite. It was a promise I kept making to myself, a comforting lie that allowed me to continue the cycle of mindless consumption without facing the immediate consequences. Each small purchase felt insignificant, but together they formed an avalanche that was burying my financial goals alive. That night, staring at the screen, I knew something had to change. It wasn't just about the money, it was about control. I felt like my spending habits were controlling me, not the other way around. The constant dopamine hit of a new purchase was followed by the lingering hollow feeling of buyer's remorse. I was tired of the cycle. I decided right then and there to do something drastic, something that would force me to confront my habits head on. I was going to completely cut off all non-essential spending for 30 days. To make this challenge work, I knew I couldn't just try to spend less. I needed a clear, simple, and non-negotiable set of rules. Ambiguity is the enemy of financial discipline. So I sat down and wrote out my commandments for the next 30 days. There were no gray areas, either a purchase fit the rules, or it didn't. This wasn't about punishing myself, it was about creating a framework that would force me to be intentional with every single dollar. The goal was to eliminate mindless spending entirely. I wrote them on a sticky note and stuck it right on my computer monitor, where I couldn't ignore it. Here were my 5 simple rules. First, buy only the absolute essentials. This meant groceries, gas for my car to get to work, and paying my regular bills like rent and utilities. Nothing else. Second, no restaurant food or takeout, period. This included everything from fancy dinners to a quick $5 coffee. I had to cook and prepare every single one of my meals and beverages at home. Third, no online shopping. This was a big one. The convenience of Amazon, Etsy, and countless other sites was a major weakness. To enforce this, I uninstalled the shopping apps from my phone and removed my saved credit card information. Fourth, use what you already have. Before even thinking about buying something essential, I had to check if I already owned a substitute. This applied to food in the pantry, clothes in the closet, and cleaning supplies under the sink. And finally, the 5th rule, plan only free activities. My social life couldn't just go on hold, so I had to get creative. This meant suggesting park walks instead of bar hopping, hosting a potluck or board game night instead of going out for dinner. The first few days were brutal. My brain was on autopilot, constantly suggesting things to buy. I'd be driving home from work and my car would practically try to turn itself into the drive-thru. The before voice was screaming at me. You've worked hard all day, you deserve a break. Just get the pizza, no one will know. What's one little coffee going to hurt? It's not a big deal. It was a constant internal battle, a tug-of-war between my old impulsive self and my new disciplined resolve. It was exhausting. The social aspect was also incredibly awkward at first. When friends texted to ask if I wanted to grab dinner or see a movie, I had to be honest. I simply said, hey, I'm doing a no-spend challenge this month, so I'm not eating out or spending money on entertainment. How about we go for a hike this weekend or have a game night at my place instead? To my surprise, most of them were supportive, even intrigued. A few were confused, but it forced me to be upfront about my goals. It was a real test of my commitment, and saying no out loud made it feel more real and powerful. By the end of the first week, something started to shift. The constant urge to spend began to quiet down. I was rediscovering my own kitchen, digging through the pantry and freezer for ingredients I'd forgotten I had. I made a huge batch of chili that lasted for days, packed my own lunches, and brewed coffee at home every morning. Not only was I following the rules, but I was also eating healthier. I started to notice the little things, like the satisfaction of drinking a coffee that cost me mere cents to make, knowing that the $5 I would have spent was still sitting safely in my bank account. Week 2 was a turning point. The initial shock had worn off and a new sense of calm was setting in. I wasn't fighting the urges as much, I was simply living differently. I went to the library and checked out a stack of books for free entertainment. I went on long walks in a local park I hadn't visited in years. My weekends, which used to be a whirlwind of brunches, shopping, and expensive outings, were now slow, peaceful, and most importantly, free. I was starting to realize that my old life, filled with constant spending, was also filled with a lot of noise and distraction. This new, quieter life was surprisingly nice. The second half of the month was where the real magic happened. The after voice in my head started to take over completely. It was no longer a struggle, it was a preference. Instead of feeling deprived, I started feeling empowered. I would walk past a coffee shop and think, I have perfectly good coffee at home. That's $5 I can put directly into my savings. I'd see an ad for a new gadget and my first thought wouldn't be, I want that, but do I actually need that? What do I already own that does the same thing? The mindset shift was, honestly, just profound. I was no longer a passive consumer, I was an active, conscious decision maker. I started finding joy in things that had nothing to do with commerce. I organized my entire apartment, decluttering years of impulse buys. It felt like I was not only cleaning my physical space but also my mental space. I reconnected with old hobbies that didn't cost a thing, like sketching and writing. One Saturday, instead of heading to the mall, I invited a few friends over for a potluck. We spent hours talking and laughing and playing board games. It was one of the best weekends I'd had in a long time and the total cost was zero. The challenge forced me to become incredibly resourceful. I learned how to mend a small tear in a shirt instead of replacing it. I figured out how to make my own all-purpose cleaner from vinegar and water. I meticulously planned my grocery trips, building my list around what was on sale and what I already had in my pantry, which dramatically reduced my food waste. These weren't just temporary fixes for the challenge, they were life skills I was building. I was becoming more self-sufficient and less dependent on simply buying a solution for every minor problem that arose. On the final day of the challenge, I sat down to do the math. The moment of truth had arrived. I logged into my bank account, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nervousness. I compared my balance from day 1 to day 30. The number was staggering. After accounting for all my essential expenses, rent, bills, gas, and groceries, I had saved an additional $2,147. I stared at the number in disbelief. In just 1 month, by simply cutting out the non-essential noise, I had saved more than I had managed to in the previous 6 months combined. But the transformation was so much bigger than just the money. The after voice was now my default setting. It sounds like this. Is this a need or a want? Can I find this for free? Can I make it myself? How many hours of work does this purchase represent? This internal dialogue doesn't feel restrictive. It feels powerful. It's the voice of someone who is in complete control of their financial destiny. I no longer feel the pull of impulse buys. The fleeting thrill of a new purchase has been replaced by the deep, lasting satisfaction of watching my savings grow. My life is fundamentally different now. I still treat myself, but it's intentional. I might buy a coffee with a friend, but it's a planned social occasion, not a mindless daily habit. I still buy things I need, but only after careful consideration. The challenge broke the cycle. It proved to me that I could not only survive without constant spending, but I could actually thrive. I found more happiness, more time, and more peace of mind in a month of less than I ever did when I was buying more. The 30-day no-spend challenge was one of the best decisions I have ever made. It wasn't about deprivation, it was about liberation. It liberated me from the cycle of debt and consumerism, from the anxiety of a dwindling bank account, and from the false belief that happiness can be added to a shopping cart. If you feel like you're stuck on that same treadmill, I can't recommend it enough. Start with a few simple rules. Commit for just 30 days and see what happens. You won't just save a surprising amount of money, you might just find a whole new way of living.